I drove my best friend's mom home. Then she asked me for one more loop. Mark, can you drive my mom home tonight? That was the text that started the whole thing. I was sitting in my truck outside the auto shop where I worked, finishing a gas station sandwich that tasted like regret and plastic wrap. My best friend David had sent the message like it was nothing. Just a favor. Just a normal Tuesday. I typed back. From where? Clinic. Her car's in the shop. I'm stuck across town. Your mom knows I'm coming? Yeah, don't make it weird. That was David's favorite line whenever something was already weird. I'd known David since middle school. His mom, Sarah, had always been around in the background of our lives. Birthday dinners, graduation photos. The woman who told us to stop eating chips over the carpet. The woman who sent us home with leftovers even when we said no. She was 41 now, though I never thought of her that way until that night. She was just Sarah to the adults and Mrs. Parker to me, because some habits are stubborn. I pulled up outside the clinic a little after 7. She stood near the side entrance with a purse on one shoulder and her phone in her hand, looking more tired than annoyed. When she saw my truck, she gave a small wave. I rolled down the window. Mrs. Parker? She opened the passenger door and leaned in. Mark, please, if you call me Mrs. Parker while driving me around, I'll feel like I should be grading your homework. Sarah, then. That sounded painful. I'm adjusting. She smiled and climbed in. Not a big smile, more like she appreciated the effort. I noticed she looked different up close. Not in some dramatic way. She was attractive, yes, and that fact hit me harder than I expected. But what caught me was her presence. Calm, worn down, still sharp. Like she had been handling everything alone for too long and didn't complain because nobody had asked properly. She buckled her seatbelt and glanced at my dash back against the seat. Long year. That bad? You're 24. I shouldn't start unloading. I've been around David for 12 years. My tolerance for emotional damage is excellent. That made her laugh, and the sound changed the truck. I don't know how else to put it. It stopped feeling like I was doing a favor for my friend and started feeling like there was a person beside me who had been waiting all day to laugh once. David said you were stuck across town? She asked. He said he was, which could mean work, traffic, or a couch he didn't want to get up from. That boy. He's consistent, I'll give him that. She looked out the window. He doesn't mean anything by it. I know. No, you don't. You're loyal, so you excuse him differently. That landed a little closer than I expected. That was very specific for mile 3. She turned her head. Sorry. No, you're right. Annoyingly early, but right. She laughed again. Softer this time. Her house was about 30 minutes from the clinic if traffic behaved. Traffic did not behave. A stalled truck had backed up the main road, so I took the long way without thinking much of it. Sarah noticed after 2 turns. This isn't the fastest route. No, but it moves. You always do that? Do what? Choose the route that feels less trapped. I glanced at her. You always make normal driving sound like a personality test. Only when I'm bored. You're dangerous when bored. You have no idea. There was nothing flirty in the obvious sense. No big move. No line crossed. But there was a charge under the words, enough that I kept both hands on the wheel and reminded myself who she was. David's mom. My best friend's mom. A woman 17 years older than me. A woman sitting in my truck like she belonged there more naturally than most people my age ever had. We talked about normal things first. Work, David, bad coffee, the ridiculous rent in town. She told me she worked patient intake at a medical clinic and spent half her day calming down invented paperwork. Sounds glamorous. Oh, very. I wore my fancy shoes today. They hurt, which means success. I looked down briefly, then back at the road. I'll take your word for it. Good save. I'm 24, not suicidal. She turned her face toward the window, but I caught the smile. Then the talk shifted. Not all at once. It slid there the way long drives do when you stop performing for each other. She asked about my job. I told her I liked fixing things because machines were honest. You sound like an old man, she said. I've been training. No, I mean it. Most guys your age don't say things like that. Most guys my age think doing laundry before it smells like a crime scene is a personal achievement. And you? I fold. She looked at me with theatrical surprise. That is almost suspicious. My mother raised me with fear and folded towels. Good woman. She'd like you. Sarah went quiet for a few seconds. I used to know how to be around mothers. I didn't jump in. I had learned that sometimes people kept talking if you didn't rush to prove you were listening. She rubbed her thumb along the edge of her phone. After my husband passed, people treated me like I was made of glass for about 6 months. Then they treated me like I should be finished being sad. David was already grown, busy, trying not to come home too often because the house felt heavy. I understood, I really did, but understanding something doesn't make dinner less quiet. I slowed at a red light. How long has it been? 8 years. I'm sorry, thank you. She looked at me. And thank you for not saying he's in a better place or that everything happens for a reason. I try not to insult people when they're trapped in my truck. Such grace. I'm known for it. She smiled, but this one didn't hide the hurt. By the time we reached her street, neither of us was rushing the conversation anymore. Her house sat near the end of a quiet block. The windows were dark except for the porch light. I watched her watch it. The place wasn't ugly or sad. It was just still. Too still. Like the kind of house that waited for a person to come home and didn't care whether that person wanted to. Sarah's hand rested on the door handle, but she didn't pull it. Thank you, Mark. No problem. She nodded once, still looking ahead. Then she whispered, almost like she hated herself for asking, let's take one more loop, please. I didn't ask what she meant. I didn't make a joke. I didn't remind her it was late. I shifted back into drive and pulled away from the curb. Her shoulders dropped like she had been holding them up all day. Thank you, she said again. Don't thank me yet. My loops are famous for poor planning. That's okay. If we end up in another county, I'm blaming you. I'll accept responsibility. That was the first time I saw real relief on her face. Not happiness exactly. Relief. And somehow that felt more intimate than a compliment. If I'd known where that one extra loop was headed, I might have gripped the wheel tighter. I still would have driven. We didn't go anywhere special. We circled through quiet streets, past closed stores and lit-up diners, down roads I usually ignored because there was no reason to take them. That night, the lack of reason became the reason. Sarah talked more, not constantly. She had long pauses and I didn't fill all of them. She told me she hated eating dinner at the kitchen counter but did it anyway because sitting at the table alone felt too official. She told me David called, but usually while doing something else. He loves you, I said. I know. That's not the problem. What is? He thinks love is checking in just enough to avoid guilt. I let that sit. She looked over. Too much? No. Accurate. You always agree this easily, only when someone earns it. She leaned back. David said you were dependable. Coming from him, that means I own a calendar. He also said you're annoyingly a little. Then this must be strange. What? Driving around with me. I could have lied, I almost did. It started strange, I admitted. Now it's just easy. She looked at me for a long second, then turned away. Easy is dangerous, not always. At my age it usually comes with fine print. You're 41, not 80. Careful. That almost sounded like a compliment. It was a correction. Very romantic. I laughed before I could stop myself. I didn't say romantic. No, you got scared and said correction. She had me there. We stayed out until after midnight, then 1, then somehow 2. We stopped for coffee at a 24-hour place with bad lighting and decent pie. I paid because I had invited myself into the role of gentleman and had no graceful exit. Sarah raised an eyebrow when I handed over my card. I can pay for my own coffee. I know. Then why are you doing that? Because I'm already standing here and arguing over $4 feels like a terrible use of our remaining time on Earth. The cashier snorted. Sarah tried not to smile. You're very dramatic for a calm person, she said when we got back in the truck. I contain multitudes. You contain gas station sandwich and stubbornness. And now coffee. A complete man. We talked until the sky started turning pale. I drove her home just after 5, and this time the house looked less threatening in the morning light. Still, when I parked, I didn't want her to get out. That should have worried me more than it did. She unbuckled slowly. I can't believe we did that, neither can I. I'm too old for all-night drives. You handled it better than I did. I'm going to look like a haunted mechanic by noon. She laughed, then reached for the door. I heard myself say, tomorrow at 8, we repeat? She stopped. That was the moment I knew I had stepped off the normal road. Not fallen. Not slipped. Stepped. Sarah turned back to me. You mean that? I don't usually offer sleep deprivation casually. David, she held my gaze. I just know I don't want to explain something I don't understand yet. That was honest. More honest than either of us probably deserved at dawn. 8, I said. Her smile was small, bright, and young in a way that had nothing to do with age. 8. The next night, I pulled up at her house like a man making a delivery he didn't want anyone to sign for. Sarah came out with a sweater over one arm and a look that said she had almost talked herself out of it. I leaned across and opened the passenger door. She stood there. This is ridiculous. Yes, we're adults. Also yes, we should probably not be sneaking around like teenagers. I was boring as a teenager, so this is new for me. She got in. That explains the driving. It explains many things. Those night drives became ours. I know how that sounds. Too simple. Maybe too convenient. But nothing about it felt simple while we were living it. It felt careful. It felt like both of us knew there was a line somewhere in the dark, and kept pretending the headlights would show it before we crossed. Some nights we barely left the neighborhood. Some nights we drove out toward the lake, and parked where other cars came and went. We talked about food, work, family, stupid movies, bad dates, David's ability to borrow things forever, and all the quiet subjects that only came out after midnight. Sarah could be warm one minute and sharp the next. "You're judging my music," she said one night, changing the station. "I'm trying to survive it respectfully. This song was huge. So were fax machines." She pointed at me. "That was rude. That was history. You enjoy being difficult. I enjoy accuracy." She smiled at the windshield. "I miss this." "What?" "Having someone argue with me over nothing. That is a service I provide. No, you listen, then you argue. There's a difference." I didn't know what to say to that, so I took the coward's route. "Do you want coffee?" She gave me a look. Smooth. The way she stopped calling me a boy after the third drive. The way she said my name when she was tired. Not loud, not dramatic. Just Mark, like it mattered that I was the one there. And me? I told myself I was being kind. Then I told myself I was lonely too. Then I told myself it was harmless because nothing had happened. A man can tell himself a lot of useful nonsense when he doesn't want to admit the truth. The first real shift came 3 weeks in. I had finished work early, showered, changed shirts twice like an idiot, then sat on my couch pretending not to watch the clock. At 7:42, my phone buzzed. "Sarah, I can't tonight. I'm sorry. Clinic emergency, paperwork mess. Rain check?" I stared at the message longer than a normal person should. I typed, "No problem," deleted it, typed, "Of course," deleted that too. Finally I sent, "Handle your chaos. I'll be around." She replied with a small heart, then nothing. 8 came, then 9. My apartment felt louder than it ever had. I tried watching a game. I had no idea who was winning. I tried cleaning the kitchen. The kitchen did not need my emotional support. At 10:30, I grabbed my keys out of habit and stopped at the door. That was when it hit me. I didn't miss the drives. I missed her. I missed the way she challenged me. I missed her tired laugh. I missed looking over and finding her already looking at me, then pretending she had been checking traffic like a very guilty liar. I sat back down and said out loud, "Well, that's inconvenient." The empty room did not disagree. The next night, I didn't wait in my truck. I walked up to her porch and knocked. Sarah opened the door with her phone in one hand. She looked surprised, then pleased, then careful. "You usually text." "I know." "Everything okay?" "No." Her expression changed. "What happened?" I took a breath. "I'm going to say something, and you can tell me I'm out of line. I'll accept it. I won't argue. I won't make it your problem. Not as someone I'm helping. I like you as a woman. And last night when you canceled, I realized I wasn't disappointed because my evening changed. I was disappointed because I didn't get to see you." She looked down at the phone in her hand like it had become useless. I forced myself to finish. I don't want to hide inside a friendly routine and pretend I don't know what this is turning into. For a while, she didn't speak. Then she stepped onto the porch and pulled the door mostly closed behind her. "You shouldn't say that. I know. You're David's best friend. I know. You're 24. I also know that. I'm 41. I can count." That almost got a smile, but not quite. She crossed her arms. "You're making jokes because you're nervous. Yes, good. At least one of us is behaving normally." I nodded toward my truck. "Do you want me to leave?" "No." That one word did more damage to my self-control than anything else she could have said. She looked at me then, really looked. I canceled last night because I needed to finish work, but when I got home, I stood in my kitchen and hated every minute of being there. Not because of the house, because you weren't outside. I didn't move. She kept going quieter. I told myself it was companionship, that I was lonely and you were kind. Then I told myself I was being selfish. Then I told myself I was imagining things. Were you? No. The porch was quiet. Somewhere down the block, a car door shut. Neither of us looked. I said, I don't want to rush you. You already did. Fair. But I'm glad you did. She pressed her lips together, then shook her head like she was annoyed with her own honesty. I like you too, Mark. More than I should. More than I know what to do with. That should have been the perfect moment for some big move. I didn't make one. I was not that smooth, and for once I was grateful. So what do we do? I asked. She let out a breath. We don't lie to ourselves. That's first. And second, we take first date like you're negotiating a parking ticket. I'm trying not to make it worse. You're not. She softened. There's a small place near the park. Lunch tomorrow. Daylight. No hiding in the truck. Lunch tomorrow. And Mark? Yeah? If you change your mind because this feels too complicated, tell me straight. I won't change my mind because it's complicated. You don't know that yet. No, I said, but I know I'm not a tourist. Her eyes stayed on mine. Good, she said. Lunch was strange at first. Not bad. Just exposed. In the truck we had the road, the dark, the excuse of motion. In a cafe at noon there were forks, menus, other people, and nowhere to put our hands without noticing them. Sarah sat across from me and opened the menu upside down. I waited. She looked down, sighed, turned it around and said, Not a word, I wasn't going to. You were smiling. My face betrayed me. Control your face. I'll file a request. She laughed, and the knot between us loosened. We didn't hold hands that day. We didn't kiss. But when we walked through the park after lunch, she took my arm for 3 seconds while stepping around a muddy patch. She let go quickly. Too quickly. Then 10 steps later, she took it again and didn't explain. After that came more dates. A movie where neither of us remembered the plot. A morning at the farmer's market where Sarah argued with a man about peaches like it was a civic duty. Dinner at a place outside town where nobody knew us. More drives, still, because some habits had become part of the language between us. We were careful, not ashamed. Careful. I didn't tell David. That was the part that sat wrong in my chest. Every time his name popped up on my phone, I felt the drag of it. He'd send dumb videos, complain about work, ask if I wanted to grab burgers. I'd answer like nothing had changed. Sarah knew it bothered me. One night, parked outside her house after a movie, she said, You're quiet. I'm thinking. Dangerous. Very. David? Sounding a lot like never if you let it. I'm not letting it. Are you sure? No. But I'm trying to be. She touched my hand on the seat between us. Her fingers were warm. The contact was small, but neither of us treated it like nothing. I don't want to be your secret, she said. You're not. Not in your head. But in the world? I looked at our hands. In the world, we're not there yet. That sounds reasonable. I hate when reasonable sounds cowardly. She smiled sadly. It often does. The first kiss happened 2 nights later, not in some grand romantic setup. We were in her kitchen because her porch light had burned out and I had replaced it before our drive. She insisted on making tea as payment. I could have handled a bulb, she said, setting a mug in front of me. I'm sure you could. Then why did you do it? Because I'm tall and you looked like you were about to drag a chair outside. I had a plan, a risky plan, a perfectly fine plan. You were going to argue with electricity while standing on furniture. She leaned back against the counter. You make me sound reckless. I make you sound alive. That stopped her. I didn't mean to say it like that. It came out too plain, too close to the truth. She set her mug down. Mark, I know. No, come here. I stepped closer slowly. She didn't move away. She looked nervous, and that made me more careful, not less. This is probably foolish, she whispered. Probably. You're not supposed to agree. I'm trying honesty. It's ugly but efficient. She laughed once, then reached for my shirt and pulled me closer. The kiss was not dramatic. It was quiet, slow. A decision more than a loss of control. When we separated, she kept her hand against my chest for a second. I'm scared, she said. Me too. You don't look it. I'm working very hard. That earned a real smile. From then on, there was no pretending it was friendship. There was restraint, yes. There was respect. There were doors we did not rush through because both of us knew. So Sarah and I went to the park 2 towns over. We walked, got coffee, sat on a bench, and talked like people who were tired of editing themselves. I had my arm along the back of the bench. She was close enough that her shoulder touched mine. Then I heard, "No way." I looked up. David stood on the path 10 feet away, holding a takeout bag, staring at us like his brain had refused the image. Sarah moved first. She sat upright. "David." He looked at her, then at me, then back at her. "What is this?" I stood. "David." "No." He pointed at me. "Do not start with my name like you're about to fix my brakes." Sarah rose beside me. "We should talk somewhere private." "Private?" He laughed once, hard. "That's rich. Keep your voice down," I said. His eyes snapped to me. "You don't get to tell me anything right now. Fair, but don't make a scene around your mother." "My mother?" He stepped closer. "You mean the woman you've been sneaking around with?" Sarah's face tightened. "David." "How long?" Neither of us answered fast enough. He looked disgusted. "How long?" I said. "A few weeks." "A few weeks," he nodded like the words tasted bad. "And you both just forgot to mention it." "We were going to tell you," Sarah said. "When? At Thanksgiving?" "You going to pass the potatoes and announce my best friend is dating my mom?" A couple walking by slowed. I gave them a look and they kept moving. David's voice dropped, but his anger didn't. "You were at my apartment last week." "I was," I said. "You sat on my couch and acted normal." I didn't know how to say it yet, because there's no good way to say something like this. Sarah stepped forward. "David, I'm sorry you found out this way." He turned on her. "You're sorry I found out. Great. No, I'm sorry we hurt you. You didn't hurt me. You made me look stupid." That line told me more than he probably meant to reveal. Sarah heard it too. "This isn't about how you look. It is when my best friend is with my mother and everyone else gets to find out before me. I can't even look at either of you." Sarah reached toward him. "David, please." He stepped back like her hand burned. "You want him? Fine, but understand me. If you keep doing this, don't call me. Don't text or expect me at your house. I'm done." Her face changed. I saw the hit land. "Don't say that," she said. "I mean it." "No, you're angry." "I mean it." His voice was flat now, him or me. I looked at David and felt the old loyalty pull at me. Years of friendship, his couch, his jokes, his family table. Then I looked at Sarah and saw something worse than fear. I saw her already choosing pain because it was familiar. "David," I said, "don't put that on her." He turned. "You don't get a vote. I'm not asking for one." "Good." Sarah barely spoke. "I need to go." I moved toward her. "Sarah." She looked at me, and I knew before she said it. "Please don't." David watched us both, breathing hard. I nodded once. "Okay." She walked away with him. Not beside him exactly, behind him. That bothered me more than I could admit. I stood there in the park with 2 coffees going cold on the bench and felt like I had just lost both of them in one clean cut. That night I called Sarah. No answer. I texted, "Can we talk?" Nothing. The next morning she sent one message. "I'm sorry, Mark. I can't lose my son. Please don't contact me. I read it in my kitchen at 6:14 a.m. I still remember the time because I stared at the microwave clock like it might explain what to do next. I typed back, "I understand." Then I deleted it. I typed, "This is wrong." Deleted that too. I finally sent, "I hear you. I won't push you by phone." She didn't respond. David blocked me by noon. For 2 days I gave everyone space because that seemed mature. By the 3rd day, maturity started to look suspiciously like hiding. I went to work. I came home. I slept badly. I saw Sarah's street in my head every time I drove after dark. I hated David. Then I hated myself for hating him. Then I remembered the way he had said, "You made me look stupid," and near the entrance and waited. At 6:30 he pulled in. He saw my truck before he got out. For a second, he just sat there behind the wheel. Then he stepped out and slammed the door. "You've got to be kidding me." I got out too. "We're talking." "No, we're not." "Yes, we are." He walked toward the building. I matched his pace, not crowding him, not backing off. "Go home, Mark. I will after you hear me. I heard enough. You heard your pride screaming. That's not the same thing." He spun around. "Don't try that calm voice with me. This is my regular voice. You've known me 12 years. Exactly, 12 years. That's why this is sick. Use a better word. You don't get to edit me. I do when you're using anger to avoid thinking." He stared at me. "You really came here to lecture me?" "No, nah. I came here because your mother is sitting in that house alone again, because you didn't like what her happiness looked like." His jaw tightened. I kept my voice even. "It took effort. You can hate me. You can end the friendship. That's your choice. But you don't get to hold your relationship with her like a weapon and call it love." He stepped closer. "She's my mother. She is, and she was a woman before she was your mother. She still is. Don't talk about her like that." "Like what? Like she's alive?" He looked away. That was the first crack. I pushed because I'd come too far to soften it. 8 years, David. 8 years in that house after your dad passed. You moved out. You built your life. That was right. You should have. But don't act like calling her twice a week gives you ownership over what she does with the rest of her life. You think I don't care about her? I think you care. I also think you got used to her being exactly where you left her." His face hardened again, but he didn't walk away. "She told you that?" he asked. "No, she didn't have to. Convenient. You know it's true." He laughed without humor. "And you? What? You're the hero now." "No. Then what are you? A mirror?" "Yes." "You expect me to be okay with that?" "No, I expect you to be angry, confused, probably disgusted for a while." "I can live with that." "How generous. But I won't accept you punishing her because you can't process it." He pointed at me. "You lied to me." "Yes." That stopped him. I nodded. "I did. I should have told you sooner. I was careful until careful became dishonest. That part is on me." He blinked like he had expected excuses and didn't know what to do with ownership. I continued. "But my mistake doesn't make your ultimatum right. She chose me. She chose fear." His face shifted, not enough to forgive me, but enough to hear me. "You think she wanted to cut me off?" I asked. "You think that message sounded like freedom?" He didn't answer. I stepped back a little. "You know me. You know what kind of man I am. If you think I'm using her, say it. If you think I'd hurt her for fun, say it. If you think I'm some passing joke, look me in the eye and say that." David swallowed. "Nothing." "Exactly," I said. He looked toward his building. "This is messed up. Yeah, it's not neat. She's my mom, I know. You're my best friend. I know that too. You don't get how that feels." "No, I don't. But you don't get how it felt watching her stare at her dark house like walking inside was a punishment." His eyes came back to me. I said it quieter. "She asked me to take one more loop, David. That's how it started. Not with some plan, not with disrespect. She just didn't want to go home yet." His anger drained in pieces. After that, not gone, just tired. He sat down on the low wall near the walkway. I stayed standing. "My dad would hate this," he said. "You don't know that." "I do." "No. You know you hate imagining her with someone who isn't him." "That's different." He rubbed both hands over his face. "I hate you right now." "That's allowed. You're being annoyingly reasonable." "I've had practice." He almost smiled. It died fast, but I saw it. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then he said, "Did she really?" She'd say, "She's your mother. She spent your whole life not making her pain your job." That one landed hard. He stood slowly. "I need to talk to her." "Yes. And you need to stay out of it." "I will." He gave me a sharp look. "Can you? I came here to get you to talk to her, not to win a trophy." "She's not a trophy." "I know." His shoulders lowered a little. "I still don't like it," he said. "I didn't ask you to. I still may never like it." "That's honest. But I shouldn't have said I'd cut her off, no." He looked at me, and for the first time since the park I saw my friend in there. Angry, bruised, stubborn, but not cruel. "I'm not ready to forgive you." "I didn't come for that either." "Good." He started toward his car, then stopped. "Mark." "Yeah? If this hurts her, we're done forever." I met his eyes. "If I hurt her, I'll deserve that." He nodded once and left. I drove home with no music on. My hands hurt from gripping the wheel, though I hadn't noticed during the conversation. I didn't know what David would say to her. I didn't know if Sarah would answer the door. I didn't know if she had already decided that loving me cost too much. But for the first time in days, I had done something besides wait. Sarah called at 9:18 that night. I answered on the first ring and hated how obvious that made me. "Hi," I said. For a moment, all I heard was her breathing. Then she said, "He came over." "I know. You talked to him." "Yes. He said you were impossible." "That sounds like progress." She gave a broken little laugh, then went quiet again. "Sarah, I'm sorry. You don't have to." "Yes, I do." Her voice shook, but she kept going. I was scared. I saw his face in that park and I folded. I told myself I was being a good mother, but it wasn't just that. I was afraid he'd leave, and I let that fear decide for me. You were put in an unfair spot. I still made a choice. I sat down on the edge of my bed, so make another one. Silence. Then she whispered, that sounds like you. What does? Simple. He was awkward and defensive and kept pacing around my kitchen like the floor had answers. But he apologized. How are you? Tired. Honest answer, terrified. Of me? No. Of wanting this again and losing it. I looked at the floor. I can't promise there won't be consequences. I know. I can't promise David will be comfortable. I know. I can promise I won't treat you like something I'm ashamed of. She was quiet long enough that I thought the call had dropped. Then she said, come over. I stood. Now? Yes. Unless you need to negotiate with your calendar. I'm already moving. Mark? Yeah, don't speed. I wasn't going to. You absolutely were. I'll speed emotionally. That's not a thing. It is tonight. When I got to her house, the porch light was on. She opened the door before I knocked. She looked like she had been crying, but she also looked present in a way I hadn't seen before. Not fixed. Not magically fine, just standing in her own doorway like she had decided it belonged to her again. I didn't step in right away. You sure? I asked. She nodded. I'm sure. I don't want you choosing me because David backed off. I'm not. I don't want to be the reason you lose him. You're not. His fear was. Mine was. We're working on it. That sounds messy. It is. I smiled a little. Very romantic. She laughed through the last of her tears. Come here. I stepped inside and she put her arms around me. We stood like that without performing anything for anybody. No speech, no perfect line, just relief, real and heavy. After a minute, she pulled back and looked at me. I love you, she said. I should have said it before everything went wrong. I shook my head. You said it now, and you? I told David before I told you. Her eyebrows lifted. That is deeply inconvenient. I know, poor planning. Say it properly. I held her gaze. I love you. She closed her eyes for half a second, then opened them. Again I laughed. You're demanding. I've had a hard week. I left dinner after everything was uncomfortable enough to count as exercise. Sarah cooked, because she needed something to do with her hands. David sat across from me like he was deciding whether to forgive me or throw a dinner roll at my head. I would have accepted either. Sarah set plates down. Nobody is required to enjoy this, but everyone is required to behave. David looked at me. She means you. I pointed at myself. I am a guest and a delight. Sarah gave me a warning look. Mark, behaving. David looked down at his plate, then muttered, the potatoes are good. Sarah froze for half a second. Thank you. It was small, ridiculously small, but it mattered. Later, when Sarah stepped into the kitchen, David and I were alone at the table. He didn't look at me when he said, I'm still mad. I figured, I don't know how long I'll be mad. Take your time. That makes me want to be mad longer. I'll try to be less supportive. He looked at me then. Don't be weird with her in front of me. Define weird. Mark. Okay. Fair. And don't disappear on her. I won't. He nodded, then said quietly, she seemed better tonight. She is better when you're in her life. His face tightened. Yeah, I didn't push. Over the next months, we did the work that people skip in movies because it's not pretty enough. Sarah and David had hard conversations without me in the room. I gave them space when they needed it and stood my ground when my relationship with Sarah deserved air. David and I didn't go back to exactly what we were. We couldn't. But we built something different. More honest, less lazy. He stopped acting like friendship meant he could avoid difficult truth. I stopped acting like loyalty meant silence. Sarah changed too. She stopped apologizing for being happy. Not all at once. Sometimes she'd still pull her hand away in public if someone looked too long. Sometimes she'd ask, are you tired of explaining me yet? And I'd say, I haven't started. Then she'd roll her eyes and call me impossible if I felt it in my chest. We still drove at night. Not every night. Life got busy. Work schedules changed. David came around on Sundays sometimes. Sarah and I found routines that didn't require hiding inside my truck. But every so often, after dinner or after a long day, she would stand near the front door with that look. I'd grab my keys. You didn't even ask, she'd say. You have a face. I do not have a face. You absolutely have a one more loop face. That is not flattering. It's accurate. Again with accuracy. It's my burden. About a year after that first ride, Sarah moved into my place while we looked for something better together. Not because we needed a perfect ending, because her house had become too big and my apartment had become too small for the life we were actually living. David helped carry boxes. He complained the entire time, which was how I knew he was mostly okay. He lifted one box and looked at the label. Kitchen stuff. Why is this so heavy? Sarah called from the hallway. Because I own plates, David. You own bricks shaped like plates. I took the box from him. Careful, that's your inheritance. He looked at me. You are not allowed to joke about my inheritance. Sarah walked in and pointed at both of us. No fighting near the fragile items. David looked at me. She means you. I nodded. I remain a guest and a delight. Sarah smiled despite herself. Unfortunately, yes. That night, after David left, Sarah and I sat on the floor with takeout containers because we couldn't find half the kitchen. She leaned against my shoulder, tired and quiet. Was it worth it? She asked. I looked at her. The boxes? Mark. I knew what she meant. I thought about the park, the blocked calls, David's face outside his apartment, her empty house. My fear of losing the life I understood, her fear of losing the only family she had left. Yes, I said, not easy. Worth it. She nodded. I think so too. Youth had nothing like relief anymore. It sounded like happiness that had stopped asking permission. We bought a small house 6 months later. Nothing fancy. A decent yard. A garage for my tools. A kitchen Sarah claimed before I finished unlocking the door. I got a better position at the shop, then helped open a second location with my boss. Sarah moved to a smaller clinic where they treated her like a person instead of a machine with a smile. We made friends who knew us, not as a scandal, not as an explanation. David came around, slowly, not perfectly. Some days he was still awkward, some jokes still landed wrong. But he brought groceries when Sarah was sick. He called before coming over. He asked me for help fixing things and actually returned my tools, which in David's language was emotional growth. One Sunday he stood in our driveway watching Sarah laugh at something I said while she watered the plants. He looked at me and shook his head. Still weird, I shrugged. Still your problem. He stared at me, then laughed. Yeah, I walked into that. You did. He nodded toward Sarah. She's happy. Yes, don't ruin it. I won't. He looked at me for a long second. I know. That was the closest thing to full forgiveness I needed. Sometimes people ask if the age difference bothered me later, once the drama settled and real life took over. The answer is simple. Real life made it matter less, not more. Bills showed up. Work got tiring. David annoyed both of us. Sarah stole the good side of the bed. I left tools on the counter and got the look. We argued about groceries, vacation plans, and whether I drove too fast on side streets. In other words, we became normal. And after the way it started, normal felt like winning. I'm not saying love fixes loneliness in one clean move. It doesn't. Sarah still had years behind her that I couldn't erase. I still had guilt about how we started, and I had to earn my place in the open, not just in the late night. Love is good only if you're willing to stand in daylight and take the consequences. Every once in a while we drive past her old street. Not on purpose, usually. It's just part of town. The first time it happened, she went quiet. You okay? I asked. She looked at the house as we passed. Yes. You sure? She turned to me. Keep driving, so I did. At the next light, she reached over and touched my arm. Mark? Yeah? Let's take one more loop, please. I smiled and changed lanes. Always. Would you have confronted David, or would you have walked away to avoid destroying the friendship? Do you think Sarah was wrong to choose her son first? Or was she just scared of losing the only family she had left?